just wanted to share a little update on what I have planned for 2024 now that I'm going to be stepping away from the mountain bike world a bit more. So, as many of you know, in 2021, my life changed quite a bit when I had an adverse reaction to the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. It caused some heart issues with me as well as some autoimmune issues. And in 2021, when I began to kind of try to share that story a little bit, I was pretty naive to how divisive it was going to be. I didn't really understand why people were so upset and that people were going to be so upset at the time and that it would turn into a political issue somehow. Essentially, people thought that us sharing our stories as injured people was going to create vaccine hesitancy and cause people to not take this product, which would then perpetuate the pandemic or kill other people. And we were just trying to share our honest stories of what happened to us. And the main reason why, even though there's a lot of blowback, is that the US government had granted the vaccine companies complete immunity under the PrEP Act, meaning that there was no pathway for us to kind of sue and try to get any compensation and have right to representation. And then the other thing that happened is the US government said, all right, we're going to approve this with the PrEP Act. However, we don't really want any liability either. So we're going to put this in this little program called the CICP, where you have no right to due process, you have no right to representation. That is a 99% rejection rate. And right now, the average claim for myocarditis, like heart inflammation and damage, is $1,200 to $2,400. And other people that are getting like Guillain-Barré diagnoses or these other things, if they do get approved, it's like around $2,000. And there's been less than 20 people approved and over 10,000 claims have been filed. So essentially we were told, take the product. If something bad happens, you're kind of on your own. Fill out this paperwork. You may hear back one day. It's a final judgment. You have no right to an appeal, no right to due process, no right to an attorney. This is what it is. And that's what we've been fighting for the last few years. So it's been 3 years of going back and forth to Washington, D.C., meeting with politicians, meeting with the head of the FDA, meeting with the CDC, the NIH, all these big kind of regulatory agencies, as well as many politicians. But a lot of them are just saying, hey, we understand what happened. We also have even like a staff member who had an issue or had a family member who has an issue. So we do believe you, but it's so politically unfavorable to talk about this that we can't step out and support what you're doing. So with that being said, I've been one of the lucky ones who has been able to return to a pretty normal life. And, I'm able to do everything that I want to do aside from basically ride my bike at the level I want. Whereas a lot of other people are still struggling. They're either in wheelchairs or they have like complete debilitating injuries, or there are even people that did pass away and their family members that are just completely bereaved and are dealing with so much emotional trauma that are trying to go and advocate on behalf of their lost son or daughter. And so there's a lot of just like trauma and emotional damage and physical damage that all these injured people are trying to overcome. At the same time, we're being basically hit with the door every time we go in and have these conversations. And it's just draining. It's draining everybody. And there's really no one else that's willing to fight for it except for us. And so as one of the few people in this group of, injured Americans that has my life pretty well back, I just wanted to kind of dedicate at least 3 or 4 months and go over to Washington, D.C. and be a full-time lobbyist for a nonprofit called React 19. And so the reason that we're going to be doing this is I'm going to be kind of the squeaky wheel there on the ground in Washington, D.C., having all these meetings, trying to get politicians on board, also having a little bit more of an audience. I can kind of share what's going on and share some of the updates along the way. And so there's 2 bills in the House right now. There's HR 5142 and HR 5143. And 5142 essentially is called the Vaccine Compensation Modernization Act. And what that'll do is it'll take the COVID-19 vaccines and it'll actually add them into the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which was set up in 1986. It's called the VICP. That program right now has a $4 billion surplus. So there's $4 billion sitting inside the trust of that program. That $4 billion is earmarked for vaccine injuries, but we don't have access to it because it's a non-FDA approved, VICP approved product. So what we're trying to do is get them to retroactively change the designation, allow the COVID-19 vaccines into that program, and let people start getting claims filed through that process. So the cool thing about this program is that we can take all of our medical records, we can hire a lawyer, we can go in and they can fight on our behalf and say, this person used to be healthy, they took this product, 1 week later, their life completely changed, and here's why we think it was the product. And then we have right to an appeal and we have the right to have an attorney help represent us. So that's what we're really fighting for at the moment. If you want to learn more, we have a whole website called react19.org/Washington. On that website, there's all the bill data. You can read the bills even. And then the cool thing is we're trying to do an advocacy fundraiser where basically any amount above kind of like my living cost for being there for the next 3 or 4 months that gets raised is going to go into the advocacy fund. So we can have these people that are injured fly out on, the nonprofit's dime and represent themselves. Because right now you have people in wheelchairs flying or driving across the country, and when there's issues with their equipment, it can cause this huge headache, and it's just super expensive and time consuming and energy consuming, and it's not great. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few months. I'm going to be the lobbyist full time. I guess through the registration process, we've learned that I will be the first ever full-time vaccine injury lobbyist in America. So that's pretty cool. It's very daunting. I mean, there's a lot of stigma around this. Anytime the word vaccine comes up, people's ears perk up, which is what it is. But at the end of the day, we're trying to change the narrative around this, and we're trying to change the stigma. A good example of that is recently I had an interviewer from the New York Times reach out and want to do an interview with me. And the article he was working on was essentially titled, "How the Vaccine Injured Are Fueling the Anti-Vax Movement." And he was saying that because you guys are sharing your stories, and especially a lot of these right-wing media outlets are the only ones willing to have us on and hear us out, then we're fueling the anti-vax movement by sharing our true stories. And I told him, we would love to go on CNN, we would love to go on MSNBC, we would love to go on things like Bill Maher or Jon Stewart and just share our story and say, this is happening, it's real, what can we do about it? But none of those people want to have us on. And I told him a better title for his article would be, "Why the Government Not Providing Fair and Equitable Compensation for the Vaccine Injured is Fueling the Anti-Vax Movement." Because by them not having a pathway for us to say, hey, I had an injury, what's my next step? Then essentially we are going to advocate for ourselves, and we are going to speak out, and you are going to have a lot of people that are radicalized, because the only people that are willing to listen to you are people that are on one side of the spectrum, and you basically lose complete perspective. You lose a lot of friends, and you lose a lot of family members that are on the other side. And so, I don't know, I'm just hoping that we can, through this whole thing, even if we're not able to affect change through the bills, if we can affect change through, I guess, reducing the stigma and showing that we're normal people and we can have nuanced conversations, and that, this is a real thing, then I hope it can help change just this narrative a little bit and make some things happen. Because not only do we need to help the people that were injured, but we need to help protect the people in the future that will be injured from other products. And we need to really hold the pharmaceutical companies more liable. And if the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be held liable, then we at least need to have the government step in and help when they can. So with that being said, I'm going to hit the ground running March 1st in DC. I'm really excited. If anyone has any really good connections, like close contact with any congresspeople or senators, my email is kyle.warner@react19.org. And if you want to learn more or maybe help with our initiative, then again, you can visit react19.org/Washington, learn all about it. And please share it with anyone that you think may be interested, because this is a monumental task, and it's going to take a lot of people to kind of get behind us to try to affect change. And we need 217 House votes to get it through the House, and then we need 52 Senate votes to get it through the Senate. So even things like emailing your representative or your senator and saying, hey, I support this group, I support React 19, I support what they're doing, that goes a really long way, because the more they hear about it, the more they'll want to have those meetings with us. And I'll basically be there pounding on the door trying to get in. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, thank you all for everything. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for sticking with me through the last few years. I know it's been crazy. It's kind of an unprecedented time in that way, and I'm just excited to be a part of it and can't wait to try to help.